Blake in the morning. It is Monday, November the 10th, 7 a.m. right here on Jocks, and a busy college football weekend that we're going to recap. Get your thoughts on it, 800-239-9569. Tweet in at Mac and Cube. Alabama gets the win against LSU over the weekend. Auburn barely goes down against Vanderbilt. Looks like a team with some new life. Texas A&M stays in the win column. Georgia convincing win against Mississippi State. Nationally, maybe the game of the year, moment of the year. We'll discuss all of that across the next 3 hours. How was your weekend with travel, game, everything else, G-Mac?
It was great, man. Good game is weird game. Alabama LSU is normally one of my most excited, anticipated games of the year, just from a fan standpoint. And the buzz around the stadium, I talked to some folks yesterday. They kind of felt the same way. The buzz around the stadium was odd. I don't really know how else to really describe it. It just lacked the pregame juice that even a Tennessee had a little earlier in the year, or a Vanderbilt had earlier in the year. For whatever reason, it just didn't have the same type of energy in the pregame on campus, frankly, than we've seen kind of in the past this year. So kind of strange, but a fun game nonetheless. Game was a little bit ho-hum, but still, Bama LSU, fun to watch. How was your game?
It was a blowout, so
I know
a little
that.
bit different than a lot of people, I think, thought how it was going to go. I don't think a lot of us anticipated that it would really end up that way. Kentucky just seems to have found a little bit of new life as they smashed Florida over the weekend. I will say, I think you had a perfect example in that game, two perfect examples of why you just take a knee and go to the half. Kentucky doesn't. They give the ball back to Florida. They give them another opportunity to maybe put some points on the board. Florida, with like 22 seconds left, just take the knee, go to the half, keep it competitive. They let DJ Lagway throw another interception. That forces a quarterback change in the second half, and then I think the confidence was gone there. I think there was a lot of disinterest after all that took place. But either way, it wasn't the Florida team, I think, after what we saw against Georgia, we anticipated to get.
Right.
And it was a Kentucky team that, you got a quarterback that's kind of finding his way a little bit, not making as many mistakes, understanding when to get the ball out, when to tuck the ball and run, a run game that's sort of finding its way some, a defense that plays a physical brand of ball. And they could make some things interesting down the stretch. I really think they can, because Mark Stoops' group is sort of responding to him. I think they heard some of the noise about him potentially being out and what was going on. They look like a different team. But let's go back and dial into that Alabama win against LSU, 20-9. There are a lot of complaints with this win. Let's start with the good, though. What did you leave this game feeling, I don't want to say more confident about, but just extra confident about, good about, that Alabama was able to do outside of just getting the W against LSU?
Well, obviously, take it and run at this point. All wins at this point are good wins. If you don't believe me, ask Virginia, Louisville, Indiana. It's like just survive at this point. So eye test, looking pretty, all that stuff is overrated, in my opinion, right now. So that's one. Two, it never really felt in doubt, but at the same time, it never really felt secure either. It was a very strange game. I'm not really sure how really to describe it. It never felt like Alabama was being threatened to lose, but it did feel like one mistake could give LSU all the life they needed to potentially even take the lead. You know what I mean? It was just a very odd game. I can't really describe beyond that, but there are challenges, I think, that need to come up. They got to find something that can become a big play threat in the run game. They got to find that. I don't know how you get it, but at some point you need the guy that can actually make 20-yard runs, 15-yard runs, create some explosives there. Their big goal, though, this year, in talking to the staff, was we're not so worried about explosive runs being created. We're more worried about avoiding negative yardage runs. Because if you look statistically, if you average, and we looked this up, and it's kind of amazing. They average right now, Alabama does, less than 12% of their offensive snaps are, quote, negative plays. And those can be described as a tackle for loss, a sack, a turnover, or a penalty. Less than 12%. Last year, they were at 16.5. So if you're under 15% of negative plays, your likelihood of winning is at 88%. Pretty dang impressive. So I think right now they're not as worried about creating the big play, running the ball. They're just they're just trying to avoid making the critical mistake, and they kind of played that way. And as a result, they're not going to beat people by 30. They're going to beat people by 10, kind of like how we used to play, frankly, back in the day in 2009. Obviously different with ground attack versus ball control passing attack, but similar mentality when it comes to approaching the game.
When you look at just the run game, what do you see as far as where it is, where it possibly could go, and then maybe how problematic just all of it truly is when you talk about this team in its entirety? What they maybe are right now could be the direction they're headed, what they're going to be up against the rest of the year. How do you sort of view where the run game is for Alabama right now?
Well, I don't view it as like a huge issue personally. Like I know a lot of people are all panicked about it, but the best players on the team are at wide receiver. The second best players on the team are quarterback, and you could potentially flip those if you'd like. I thought Ty missed 2 or 3 throws, and if he hits those 2 or 3 throws, it's a completely different outcome. As far as the run game's concerned, like I just don't think Jamp has a ton of speed. Like, I think Jam is a really solid back. I think he is a guy that's going to fall forward. He's a guy that's going to do a good job of kind of finding the hole and kind of pressing the hole a little bit, but I think he lacks home run hitting potential. And when you don't have a home run hitter at running back, that's a challenge. Because you don't have the threat of the 40-yard run. You don't have the threat of a guy that's going to take it 75. And like we talked about last week with Justice Haynes, you and I talked about this, like he did have some of that explosive potential. Now, Justice Haynes, I don't think was as good at feeling the hole and getting 4, 5, 6-yard gains as Jam is. Like I think Jam's really, really good at finding the hole. I just don't think he's a guy that has that next gear that can take it 90 yards out the gate. But that's okay. That's not really what the team is trying to do. Like I just said, it's about not having it's not about explosives as much as it is about making sure you have guys that are tackled downfield, not behind the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, and it's fundamentally there are some things kind of lacking from this group in the run game that I do think could help. I think that there are some parts that could truly be improved. You watch some of the steps by the offensive line. That's something that could be there. Maybe that group being a little bit more in sync, I think, could help. I think there have been some times where I don't know if they're trying to force it. I don't know if it's just kind of a call it and run it where they've gone into some bad looks and potentially could have gotten into something else. But there are things that are trying to be set up. There are situations in games where sometimes I don't think we know everything that's happening at that point in time. So a lot of folks believe that is going to be concerning, and that is going to be something that when you look at them winning the SEC championship, maybe getting that one, getting a seed where they're going to be able to have the first round bye is not going to happen because of it. So I think with all the other weapons you mentioned, and if the defense can do things like they did over the weekend, I thought the defense played extremely well against a very dangerous offense that obviously altered a couple of things that they did and how they operated, and maybe moved more than I've seen them move all this year. I think that was maybe my biggest takeaway in this game for Alabama, GMAC, was that up front, that movement caused a lot of problems for LSU. It opened up a lot of things for the Alabama front. It allowed them to be a lot more disruptive and potentially could show teams now, hey, this is a front 4, front 3, front 7, however you wanted to adjust it. They can be active and can get after you in different ways, and you're going to have to be prepared for that.
I think the movement and active nature of the front, to me, is something I'm pretty encouraged by. Like, I don't know about you. Like, I feel pretty good about what I've seen from a growth standpoint there. Like, to me, I think compared to what I thought coming in to where they're at right now, early November, there's been a lot of progress made, and with new arrivals on the way. Like, I think there's a lot to feel good about with the trajectory of that group. How you feeling?
Yeah, I think it's allowing certain individuals to kind of show what they're capable of, show how dangerous they can be, and go out and make plays. You know, they might not fit exactly what they were doing the first half of the season, and now you have ways you can free them up, allow them to be disruptive, get in the backfield, do different things. I think it just shows signs of versatility. Because I think, with James Smith, Tim Keenum and company, if you need to kind of sit on a couple of teams and maybe play back, maybe play a little more static, calm down just a little bit. You can do that to an extent. I think one, you got linebackers that can run. I think Jefferson's had two of his better games, maybe of his
Yeah,
career in the last two games.
sure.
So you want to eat space, you want a two gap, let your linebackers run sideline to sideline. They can do that. You have the ability to play that way. But now you're getting some younger guys that are starting to step up that can be truly disruptors. And depending on what style offense you're playing, you're gonna want to be able to do multiple things. So that was one thing I was really encouraged by. Is all right. Kane Wommack's now looking at this as, well, let's go into these games with different plans. Let's allow our guys to do some different things, and we have the bodies up front to be able to do this. You got to have some in the back end too. Now you got to be able to cover, and I don't think that's been a true concern for him most of the season. But you see Nikai Hill-Green be a little bit more problematic. Bray Hubbard playing up near the line of scrimmage. I thought he had an excellent game for Alabama against LSU.
Really good.
So a couple of guys that are really just sort of coming into their own. We've mentioned Jan Zapier a couple of times, but he still shows how active he can be, kind of off the edge, doing some different things. And I think it shows a different sign of life for an Alabama defense that they're probably going to need to lean on at some point here down the stretch.
I thought Bray Hubbard had as good a game as he's had in an Alabama uniform. I think he's really coming on. I think London Simmons is going to be a good player too. Like, goodness gracious. Like, I like what I've seen from him some too. As far as the defense, man, I thought it was really dang stingy game. And I thought they really played well. And I know LSU is nothing to write home about offensively. I mean, they settled in as the game went along. And I don't know what it is, man. I'm not sure what I can really describe it with. I was actually talking with someone about this weekend. I don't remember who it was. Anyways, I feel like the system that was implemented in place here for a very long time, the pattern match system, Coach Saban's system, really good scheme, right? Very, very good scheme, but very complicated scheme. Very difficult scheme to learn, takes time to implement, takes time to feel comfortable in when evaluating, how guys adjust and communicate, and when they build formations, they build boxes, build stacks, all this other stuff. Like, it's a very complex system. It's hard. So as a result, sometimes the focus was more on execution than it was just making a play. Doesn't mean that's wrong. It's just slightly different identities. The focus and the mental attention paid to communicating with your teammate to make sure you're lined up appropriately, the focus to make sure you played the play right was the number one priority. Now I feel like the focus is on, all right, we just want to go make a play defensively. They look like they're playing super free. And you just see, like, on every single snap, they're ripping at the ball. They're trying to punch the ball. They swarm to the football. Like, it's a fun defensive idea. Very different than what we saw here for a better part of 2 decades. But this might be as much of a playmaking group defensively as I've seen in quite some time. I mean, they just do it every week. It's remarkable.
It is. And going to be fun to see how they continue to grow in this last quarter of the season. That was one thing I thought was weird. I was talking to Tom before our game, and he's like, you realize that most of these teams in the SEC still have a quarter of their season left going into this past weekend? And it didn't feel that way at all, because it felt like most of this is said and done. Maybe we have a game or two here. Texas A&M is going to be big. We'll see how some of these other games go. Alabama, Oklahoma still has playoff implications. But for the most part, things are kind of settled, and you start thinking about it, and it's like, yeah, there's a decent chunk of the regular season left for a lot of these teams, and it didn't feel that way going into the weekend. And obviously, one of those gone now, but it's still some meat on the bone for a lot of these teams. Still a lot of work to be done. Still, there's a lot of mountain to climb for a couple of teams in the SEC and nationally in college football. We'll discuss all those. We've got Paul Finebaum coming up at 7:15. We'll get his thoughts on kind of where Alabama stands, what he learned from Auburn. Does that change things for DJ Durkin with how they played over the weekend? Pete Nakos on some of the coaching candidates that are going to be available for jobs that are open, and what is he hearing about other jobs that maybe are coming open? That's at 8 a.m. this morning. Tyler Watts with us every Monday at 9 a.m. He'll join us then to discuss Alabama's win against LSU, as he was on the call for the radio broadcast against the Tigers from Baton Rouge. So all that and more coming up today on the show. Before we continue to move on, I'm going to tell you about Train. You guys know As football season moves on, you know what that means. Changes in the weather are coming. Protect your HVAC system with a checkup from a trained comfort specialist. So when the cold weather hits, you'll have peace of mind. You're protected by America's most reliable and trusted brand. Find a comfort specialist near you at Train.com. It is hard to stop a train. Okay, we'll be back with Paul Finebaum next, right here on Jocks. All right, welcome back in. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. It is 7:18, Monday, November the 10th, right here on Jocks. He joins us each and every Monday, thanks to our friends at Craneworks from ESPN, the SEC Network, and you can hear him right here, 2 to 6 p.m. weekdays on Jocks. Is Paul Finebaum.
Lift it, load it, grade it, grind it, move it, haul it, rig it, dig it, Craneworks, Rentalworks, yeah, the big dog's got it.
Paul Finebaum on Mac and Cube in the morning is brought to you by Craneworks. Lift it, buy it, rent it, the big dog's got it. Now, Paul Finebaum.
Paul, always great to have you in on a Monday. Appreciate the time. I want to start with Auburn and how they looked against Vanderbilt. The offense actually has some life, actually had some momentum, made some plays, got the ball to the playmakers. Defense, similar to what they've looked like this entire season. How much does that change your opinion of the potential of DJ Durkin getting that job and maybe just overall where the Auburn coaching search is in your mind?
Well, I've rarely ever seen such a transformation. So, Cole, I think DJ Durkin ought to be seriously considered. And I know a lot of people get hung up on, well, he had to win the game. Well, in my opinion, that was a tremendous win for Auburn, considering the difference in a 7-week period. I've never seen that type of turnaround. So I think we need to watch it very closely. And it's not because it's the convenient thing to do. It's just potentially the right thing to do. I'll leave it to Auburn, but I would put him into serious consideration. I liked his demeanor. It was just complete. I mean, I don't want to pour any more dirt on Hugh Freeze, but it's impossible not to see why this move should have been made, and the fact that Auburn has a pulse and played a top team down to overtime is, for me, a very positive and encouraging moment for Auburn.
You would never throw extra dirt on there, would you, Paul? That's not your style. That wouldn't happen.
No, you know me, Greg.
No, not at all. We love you, but there's one thing you're willing to do. We'll dirt it up all the time. Honest question, though. What do you think was holding this offense back? Like, was it actually Hugh Freeze? Because the level of freedom they played with, the level of confidence they played with, it was... I mean, I think Hugh Freeze is an excellent offensive mind. I'm just dumbfounded by the performance this weekend.
Well, I think it just became too convoluted, and while nobody really believes it was everybody had a different down. I think Hugh Freeze made something that he's quite good at, very complicated. I have no earthly idea why, but I think it was just also a malaise in the program, and sometimes it's artificial. You see it maybe for a quarter, but I mean, we saw it the whole game, and it was remarkable. And it just doesn't matter what has happened until this moment. I think all that matters now is just what that vibe is in that locker room, what John Cohn sees, and how he decides to move forward. I don't know where else he is. If he has somebody in his back pocket that he's very comfortable with, that's one thing. But if he ends up making a change after the Iron Bowl and Auburn goes to a circus act, then maybe he would be better staying the course.
What do you know about him historically in hires? What have you talked to people about, just as far as how he tries to look, what he tries to accomplish? Like, we had you on last week. We talked about Scott Woodward and how he's sort of the big game hunter, and he wants the huge name all the time, even if it's not a guy that he feels like the situation's best for him, but he just kind of wants that part out there. How would you classify John Cohen as far as searching for coaches during his tenure as athletic director at multiple schools?
Well, I got a good education of that over the weekend, being in Starkville, Cole, and it was interesting talking to people, and they told me that in the hires that he made there, he was very meticulous, methodical. And the one thing I can offer about John Cohn, he's a very smart, analytical person. I'm not saying that that necessarily separates him from every athletic director, because the new breed of athletic directors are of that caliber. But he will be prepared and is prepared. John Cohn, in my estimation, knew this change was coming weeks and weeks ago. People with whom I talked, who have been in his inner circle, said that this really started in September. And while all the attention was on the officiating, John Cohn could see something in Hugh Freeze that we all have seen, but he saw it up close. I mean, he's around the guy every day, and that killer instinct was no longer there for whatever reason. So I think he has been thinking about this. So back to the question, I think John Cohn has been working on this coaching change for a number of weeks.
Yeah, it's definitely definitely feels like that. It wasn't really a huge surprise, but still a little bit shocking nonetheless to see how stark the difference was from 1 week to the next. Paul, when you look at Alabama, it was a very strange game. And obviously with Brian Kelly being fired and LSU having lost 3 out of 4, game just lost a little buzz. But the amount of energy surrounding the game was very odd. Having just done the Tennessee game a couple weeks earlier, it was almost a completely different environment than what I saw just 3 weeks before. What do you kind of attribute that to? Is there, I don't know, is it because LSU's fallen off, or is it because the fan base is maybe not as fired up about the concerns on offense? What do you attribute that to?
Yeah, I think. Listen, I was there for the Tennessee game weekend, so I felt it, and it was completely different, Greg. And this week, and I wasn't at the game obviously, but I was around town until Friday, and it's just like the game did not exist. And I think I'm not saying that players pick up on that, but they are around the atmosphere all week, and they know when the campus is alive. And it shouldn't affect it because they are insular in a bubble, but it seemed like it did, and I think some of that has an effect. And it just was hard to take LSU seriously. And I know they're capable, but they have just fallen off that cliff, and I think it trickled down, and it just and I don't think it necessarily had as much to do with Oklahoma, but this year the way LSU went, the Oklahoma game just has felt bigger. Some of it's revenge, some of it's Oklahoma is still in a CFP position, but I don't know. Other than the bye week, usually you come back from a bye week ready to go, but it looks like Alabama decided to steal an extra bye week and to get ready for the playoff.
Paul Finebaum with us on the Higginbotham Hotline, joins us every Monday. Thanks to our friends at Craneworks. Where do you view the league right now as it pertains to the playoff? Is it in good standing as far as number of teams going to get in? Is there a part that's concerning to you about maybe where other conferences are and teams that they may end up having qualify? Where are you on the SEC and the college football playoff as we stand here today? We'll get new rankings tomorrow, but we've had at least one round of them to sort of judge this by.
I believe the SEC is in the best position it's been in really in some time. Knowing what the schedule says, it is still infinitely better than any other league. I mean, the Big Ten went backwards. Let's spare the ACC because Greg doesn't want me pouring any more dirt on anybody's grave. But it's just. And by the way, that would take a lot of dirt. But I'm
about to say, Paul, I don't think you need to do it. It's done for you. You're good there.
But. To me, Texas is the most interesting team because and Greg, you sit up there at a much closer view than I do on Tuesday night, but I still feel like because of the circumstances around college football, and the Notre Dame game will take care of something this weekend perhaps, but I still feel Texas is in a better position. Let's say they lose this game and then beat A&M at home. I mean, it's hard to find a more significant win than that game at the end of the year, and I think they would be in a 3-loss possibility. Oklahoma needs to keep winning. I think that's pretty obvious. Vanderbilt, I think, is also going to be very interesting. Can they get in with 2 losses if they were able to get by Tennessee? But there are just there's so many more possibilities in the SEC than anyone else, and I think it portends for 5 teams pretty well.
I think it's a real chance, Paul. I mean, real chance for 5. Are you ruling out 6, given the circumstances right now in the Big 12, possibly getting 1, ACC getting 1, and the, I guess, vulnerabilities that we just saw from from Oregon this weekend?
I wouldn't rule anything out from that standpoint because I just think, and I'm trying to look at where the SEC could go wrong, and I don't think they have a lot of problems. I mean, Alabama, can hurt itself, and I don't think it will. It's hard for me to believe Alabama is going to lose more than 1 game, and I don't think they're going to lose any at the moment. So I think it's going to be a situation where Texas is the most interesting. Vanderbilt, it's just, I think if Vanderbilt gets a win against Tennessee at the end of the year, that's going to put them in a really good spot. So it's interpretive, but I like 5. I'd land on 5, but if there's absolute carnage around college football, and why wouldn't there be? It could even grow more.
Paul, we always appreciate your time. Always good catching up with you, and look forward to doing it again next week.
You bet. Thanks, guys.
Paul Finebaum joining us on the Higginbotham Hotline, joined by us there, and with us thanks to Craneworks each and every Monday right here on Mac and Cube. Some interesting thoughts on the playoffs. We'll go through some of those SEC teams, kind of where they stand now, what it's going to look like. Why was Auburn's offense different against Vanderbilt? What do they change? Greg and I tell you what we saw or maybe what we didn't see next right here on Jocks. All right, welcome back in. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. It is 8:33, Monday, November 10th, right here on Jocks. Your thoughts on Alabama's win against LSU, Auburn's near win against Vanderbilt over the weekend? Offense looked a little bit different. The hows and whys. We'll talk about that here in just a moment. First, I'll tell you about Gusty Goulis and the Gusty Goulis Group. If you're looking to get into a new home in central Alabama, the Gusty Goulis Group can help. They've only served over 3,000 home buyers and sellers in the greater Birmingham area. Over 850 five-star Google reviews. So Google Gusty Goulis Group right now, and you're going to find out for yourself exactly what they can do for you and why they're going to be able to do it. Gusty Goulis Group starts marketing well before you list with them. They've got the photographers, the social media contacts. It's a crucial part of his real estate success. Call 205-542-1996 today. See what they can do for you. Brokered by eXp Realty. Better yet, go to GustyGoulsGroup.com, button top right-hand corner of your page. Smash that button. Very little information. You can figure out exactly what they believe they can get for your home. It's the Gusty Goulis Group, 205-542-1996 or GustyGoulsGroup.com. All right, so Auburn's offense shows some life. Looks a little bit different over the weekend. Let's just start with this. When you watched it, what did you feel was vastly different or even just somewhat different versus what we had been outside of the success, obviously? But What changed for you when you watched it in this game?
Tempo. I mean, to me that was the biggest and starkest difference was the pace of play. And I don't know what led to that. 'Cause if anything, I'm thinking like, golly, interim coach, defensive coordinator, like, let's play it close to the vest, boys. Let's slow it down. But that's the pace more than anything else. To me, was really remarkable, and it was I think what was most remarkable about it is that it was at the expense of what they were doing defensively. You know what I mean? I just would not have expected them to approach it that way. It was pretty awesome to see. I thought, a demonstration of selflessness from DJ Durkin, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it was cool hearing some of his comments after the game about being able to listen on the headset. You know, obviously first time that he had listened to that side of the football, and not something that he was used to seeing, not something that he was familiar with, just sort of how it worked and why. But DJ Durkin did mention that using tempo was their decision, and discussed after the game just a little bit of why they decided to go that way.
I thought give us a spark and get us moving, and it was effective. You know, and I thought we mixed in some huddle and in and out of it, and you know, again, I thought it was a really, really good plan, executed well by our players.
So, and I think what it did, number one, GMAC, it got Vanderbilt where they weren't aligned for a lot of things that were taking place there. So it allowed Auburn to steal some yards. It trapped them in certain looks where you knew what your next play could be. So you're essentially not only calling your first down play, but your second down, maybe even third down plays are already called for you if you have success on that first down. And I was with you because we were watching it live on the way to our game, and we usually come downstairs right around halftime to head over to our game. And a couple of the guys we were riding with, like spotter and stats guys for Tom, Greg, and Chris, were, man, what are they doing? Like, what's the deal here? And I was like, honestly, the main thing I see is just they're going fast. And now I will say, Ashton Daniels looked much more decisive, much more confident in get here, get out. 1-2, tuck the ball and run. And if you recall, earlier in the year, you sat down with him, I sat down with him. We discussed kind of Hugh Freeze mentioning all the freedom that these quarterbacks had. Like, you know, Jackson Arnold even telling us, like, he's like, I can go all the way over to number 4 if that's the matchup we want first, and I can get right to that. Well, they weren't getting to 2 and 3, much less 4 a lot of the time. So it felt like simplifying things, utilizing some tempo. I think the run game did really well because of that tempo. You had some short edges that you were able to get because of how the defense was aligned. It was a great plan, and it was a smart plan. Like, why would it not be smart to utilize soft coverage and throw the ball to Eric Singleton quickly and see what he can do? Or when you get one-on-ones, they've done this before, but I don't think they did it to the extent they did in this game. Cam Coleman's one-on-one, throw it down to him. Let him go get it. And it was kind of all the obvious things that should have been happening returned from a foundational standpoint in this Auburn offense. And once they started leaning on that, it just opened up a lot of other things for them.
Well, I think that was – we talked about – I think we kind of nailed this one, by the way. I thought it would be not quite as high scoring, but we kind of nailed it. Like, this is a Singleton game. Like, we kind of talked about what Auburn needed to be offensively. And I feel like in some ways we're all over it last week. Am I misremembering? Because when I was watching this game, I was like, golly, this is exactly what we talked about them doing. You know, I mean, and how you take advantage of Vanderbilt's defense, and how Vandy's defense does have some vulnerabilities on the outside and catch and run stuff, and how they're tackling in the back end hadn't been great, and things like that. Like, I feel like we kind of, well, I didn't anticipate it becoming a shootout quite like this. Auburn's path to finding offensive success is exactly what we laid out when we were breaking the game down last week, no?
For the most part, yeah. But I'll say this. Mason Murphy going down to center and Tutal Miller being at tackle, that made a difference as well. I mean, that offensive line had a little more oomph than we've seen in the last couple of weeks. Now, I also think you got a top 2 or 3 game from Jeremiah Wright. You got maybe the best game of this season for Dylan Wade. So, that group brought the fight, man. I mean, this was a physical, paint-traded type football game. And it might not, I mean, people are going to look at the one-handed catches and Diego Pavia running around. But at the end of the day, this was a game that both teams got after it at the line of scrimmage. I mean, there were defensive wins on both sides. There were offensive wins on both sides at the line of scrimmage. It was hard fought at the point of attack. It just so happened that, both quarterbacks and some receivers on both teams made plays. But I was most encouraged by just the attitude and the demeanor at the line of scrimmage, mainly on offense, and how different that was. Because I did feel like there was a little more of a north-south attitude in the run game. I mean, I don't know if I've seen the definitive nature of, hey, take the ball, get to the line of scrimmage, and go towards the goal line, maybe since the Baylor game, Greg. I mean, honestly, there were parts of that against Oklahoma. There were parts of it in some other teams, but it's been so wishy-washy of, take the Kentucky game, for example. You didn't really have a lot going at all. And then just before the half, it's like you get a counter that goes, and then it's like counter again, and then counter again. And it's just, it never really worked off of itself the way it did in this game. And I mean, you got to give Derek Nix credit. It was a good plan. It was a plan that they somehow got the players to be confident with and understand. And you just look at it and wonder what could have been now. And that's it's got to be the most frustrating part for Auburn fans, is to say, well, hold on, they can move the ball? Like, where has this been? It's not a terrible Vanderbilt defense, by the way. This guy's got some good players, some veteran players. They play hard. And you're glad your team was in it. You're glad it was competitive. You're glad they did good things. But at the same time, you got to be sitting there thinking, why didn't some of this show up at some other points in time during the course of the season?
Sure. I mean, all that's totally fair. But oftentimes when you have a coaching change like this, you have that galvanizing effect. And you've seen it in several different places, right? We've seen it at Virginia Tech. Brett Pry gets fired. They win, I think, 2 in a row. You see it at UCLA. They fired Deshaun Foster. They win 3 in a row. You've seen it, a handful of other places, by the way. And Auburn, a good example. I know it didn't materialize at LSU this past weekend. But then again, doesn't mean that it doesn't have a positive effect. But oftentimes it's because, and I think this is a good conversation to have. I think when you fire a coach, there's a few things that go down. One, players naturally are going to have a slightly better relationship with their position coach and or their coordinator than they are with the head coach. For example, like, I love Coach Saban. We were tight, but Coach McElroy was my guy. You know what I mean? We're in the room together hours upon hours upon hours upon hours. So when your guy, who you have a great relationship with, is all of a sudden promoted because your head coach had failed the team, you almost feel the need to play harder for your guy. And I know it's a strange and weird dynamic, but I really believe it's a true thing. So I think that's one. And then two, I think oftentimes when the guy gets fired, you almost intentionally go in the other direction from an interim standpoint to what was going on beforehand, where Hugh Freeze wanted to win close games, make it close, muddy it up. They overcorrect in the other direction, and all of a sudden you see an inspired performance. So I think there's a lot of reasons for why teams adjust and change and play better, but I just don't know if it's going to be sustainable. Do you think they can do it again this week, or was this just an emotional high point of the season for the group?
There's going to be, you're still going to have to alter things. Things are still going to have to be a little bit different. But I do think there's a lot of it that they can continue. Like I said, Mason Murphy inside gives them really nice girth and power on those combos. So when you want to get north and south in the run game, and by the way, how many times had we seen this year, and not including like a one-off, not including, say, a 4th and 1 or, inside the 5, but how many direct quarterback runs in the A gaps or B gaps had we seen this year? Because I feel like most had been off tackle. Yeah, not a ton. And so it's like, if you have a little bit of extra push there, and then you add a blocker to it, now all of a sudden, like, you could be working with something totally different in the run game, and you're forcing people to defend that in a different way. Like, now you can't play lighter in the box. If we're going to go +1 in the run game, you better have extra bodies there. So I think there's parts of it that they built. Also, I think too, like, the quick game, I'm trying to figure out the right words to describe this. You'll understand it though. The intermediate quick game. Like when you get a team that's playing off coverage, your quick game doesn't have to live behind the line of scrimmage. Like, give it to them 5 yards down the field. Like, at least you're starting with 5, and then Eric Singleton can make somebody miss. And it felt like 90% of the quick game was at or near the line of scrimmage before this game. And now there was a little bit of a, hey, if we can get this route at 3 or 7 or 5 and actually have positive yards to just start the whole thing off with, then they can go make some plays. Why would we not do that? And it's essentially taking free grass is what it was. And I felt like they did a better job of that too. There had been so much that was living at or behind the line of scrimmage prior to this. I think that can also continue for them as well.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, if the O-line can stabilize, if the quarterback run game can stabilize, there's enough speed, there's enough talent, there's enough weaponry on this roster to be a problem for everybody. We've been saying that for years. But I do think it's important moving forward to continue to play with this tempo. I think you want right now, tell me an offense that you think is super comfortable playing in a shootout. There's not a lot of teams that are super comfortable playing the hyperspeed tempo at this point. I think it's more fun for the players. I think it frees you up offensively. It takes away the thought process of the thinking. Like if I were them, I'd go hyperspeed tempo the rest of the year.
Yeah.
It's also exciting to watch.
Think about how many teams
DJ's going to generate fan support.
Yeah. Think about how many teams too right now defensively are well suited to defend that. And I don't even mean from a personnel standpoint. I just mean from bodies. Like how many teams have capable bodies on defense that they feel like they could sub 3 or 4 times a game with. Everybody's beat up right now, specifically on defense, and the teams that have been playing a lot of guys over there are the only ones that are going to really be in good shape to even potentially defend that. Now, you got Mercer and Alabama left. It's not going to make that much difference the rest of the way in those two. So, and I think you'll probably get Jackson Arnold, Deuce Knight in this Mercer game, and you'll try to save one for Ashton Daniels so he can potentially go redshirt. So it's going to be interesting to see because like you got another game to kind of work on some of this stuff and potentially try and put a plan together for Alabama. And some of the things that they did at times, there have been some issues with this for that Alabama defense. So it'll be an interesting one to watch if they can find a way to build some more confidence and add some different things to it when they do meet in the Iron Bowl. I don't look at it and say I'm overly confident in Auburn, going out and winning that game, but they put another one together this week, and I do think it brings some extra intrigue as to what it actually could end up being.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I mean, I think there are some parts of what Auburn does that can be very challenging for Alabama. Now, I do think Alabama's improvement defensively, they are much better suited to handle what Auburn is probably going to attack them with the speed that the linebackers are playing with the eyes discipline that the secondary is playing with how Bray Hubbard's playing. Like, I think there's – like, if this game took place in week 1, it'd be a real challenging circumstance. But with it being played now week 12 – or week, with the bye weeks, week 14, whatever, I think they're much better suited to defend it, but there are avenues for offensive success for Auburn if they play the way they played this past weekend for sure.
Absolutely. Tell our listeners about Bromberg's.
Well, Bromberg's has been serving this community for 190 years. They're the very best. I've been going there forever. Always appreciate the experience that I have. My wife's birthday is a week from now. My sister's birthday is today, so it's gift-giving season in the McElroy household. That's why Bromberg's is where I go. Obviously, here's a holiday tip. Make it easy for your loved ones to get exactly what you want. You can actually, ladies and gentlemen, you can go and create a Bromberg's wish list for Christmas. Their expert associates can help you pick out your favorite jewelry, watches, giftware, so that your loved ones can choose the perfect surprise. You'll unwrap something you truly love, and it'll come in that Bromberg signature silver box. So start your wish list today at Bromberg's in Mountain Brook or at the Summit.
All right, we'll continue on with your reaction to these games over the weekend. You can text into the show 205-834-9450. Also call in 800-239-9569. Alabama's win and what it means for Auburn the rest of the way through. All that and more next on Jocks.
Welcome back, McElroy Cubelic in the morning on Jocks 94.5. Week 12 is upon us. It's insane. I can't believe how quickly the season's gone along, but it's that time of year. Mid-November, just a few games left, but a lot still to be settled in college football. I'll tell you what's not needing to be settled. That's who's going to win GMC Dealer of the Year. That's Bill Smith Buick GMC. They've won it 5 years in a row. That's according to General Motors. They're the national champion of GMC dealers. All you got to do is go up, take a short drive up to Coleman. You'll see what I'm talking about, like a 2025 GMC Sierra 2500. This is the Nolly. Beautiful vehicle. Unbelievable. $97,530 is the list price. At Bill Smith, you get it for $85,530. It's deals like that that keep people coming back. Nowhere else can you find a 2500 Denali for $12,000 off the sticker. It's deals like that that keep people coming back. That's why 75% of their business is repeat customers, because you have a better experience when you shop with Bill Smith. Take the short drive up to Coleman. You'll be glad you did. You can also shop online. Have it delivered right to your driveway at BillSmithBuickGMC.com.
All right, Auburn sort of sustaining this the rest of the way. That was a part of the conversation. Alabama, pieces of their football team that potentially may need to improve. When you look ahead at what they're going to do, I do want to go back to that Auburn-Vanderbilt game for a moment and give Vanderbilt some credit for winning that game, which I don't even feel like we did. They do deserve a lot of credit, specifically with what they were able to do offensively. Diego Pavia goes 25 of 33, 377 through the air, 3 touchdowns, 18 for 112 on the ground. There was a lot of this, him just willing his way through, making guys miss in the backfield. Just wizardry with how he operated the offense and was able to escape catastrophes. Did not make those expletive plays that we have talked about. He's made a lot of times during different points of his career. No interceptions. Did not fumble the football. Vanderbilt did lose one, but it wasn't him. I thought Cedric Alexander was great for Vandy. I mean, as a lead blocker, some tough yards carrying the football. They didn't really feature him, but he just does so much to help that team. Stowers was incredible. I mean, just some of the individual performances between Stowers, Pavia, Coleman, Singleton, Ashton Daniels even. I mean, it was an entertaining game, fun game to watch. A lot of guys running around making plays, G-Mac. It
was. Really entertaining game. I mean, one of the better games of the college football season. And I think Diego Pavia, man, I don't care where he's at, 1, 2, 3. He's on my Heisman ballot. Like, that dude he is awesome. Like, that guy can flat out play some football. And while he's not the perfect product, he's not the most polished product, he's just a great football player. And, man, he's fun to watch.
He is, and I think, too, with how he operates the offense, I think is where a lot of people lose sight of his importance as a football player. Not going to be asked to put up the numbers that a lot of the quarterbacks do, but the importance that he brings to being able to work those fakes, make those reads, get tough yards, make plays, make things happen. I think that's where he really shows up and adds a ton of benefit. We got plenty of time to talk about that one. We'll talk Alabama's win against LSU. Should you be concerned about some of the inability to run the football? How concerning is that? And maybe how excited you should be about other parts of that Alabama football team. But when we come back, Pete Nakos on some of the coaching candidates that are out there right now, how real are they, and how many more jobs are coming open here in the next few weeks? That's next on Jocks.